A government shutdown could be around the corner, but how will that impact government hiring and other areas of your life? Money to fund federal agencies, it needs to be enacted by October 1st each year. This is the start of the fiscal year. But the government usually misses this date, and what happens instead is they create continuing resolutions, or CRs, which is temporary money to keep the government running. This is a failure of lawmakers to reach an agreement. The last time a full budget was approved on time was way back in 1997 under President Bill Clinton, who had a Republican majority Congress. Since then, we've had 135 continuing resolutions over the past 27 years, the worst year being 2001. Earlier this month, Republicans made an effort to pass a CR that would fund the government for 6 additional months. The problem with this, it was tied to something called the SAVE Act, which is a proposed law that requires proof of citizenship to vote. Republicans believe this is a big deal because a few years ago, the Pew Research Center found that over 25 million people living in the United States were not U.S. citizens. This number has only grown higher over the past few years, mainly because of the issues we're seeing at the southern border. Now, when you're registering to vote at a federal election, let's say with your mail-in ballot, this is kind of what the form looks like. This is an OMB form. It's basically a one-pager. In block 6, that's where you put an ID number. This is usually a driver's license number or a social security number based on what your state requires. In some cases, you can just mark none, like in the state of New York. New York says if you don't have an ID number, a number will be given to you. Now, on the other side, some Democrats, they believe that requiring proof of citizenship would disqualify 1 out of 10 Americans from voting, especially the economically disadvantaged Americans, looking at, for example, the homeless population. The argument here is these individuals, they're not able to maintain their records. They either get lost, displaced, or they're damaged. So by denying them the right to vote, we would be going contrary to the Constitution, which protects the vote. Regardless how you feel about voter ID laws in this country, this package never made it on the floor for a vote. The Speaker of the House pulled it off the floor before it could be voted on because it was not getting enough support. Now, both political parties, they do not really want to be responsible for a government shutdown mere weeks before a presidential election. But there are some people that wouldn't mind the government to shut down, to include politicians. And this is for a variety of reasons. One of them, they think the government's too big. Another one, they think the government is corrupt. And number 3, they do not feel their taxpayer dollars are being spent responsibly. But a government shutdown can hurt the country in many ways. First, it will cost a lot of money. A lot of agencies will shut down. Not all of them. Even during a government shutdown, not all agencies shut down, right? There's components of DOD, DHS, and other agencies that need to stay up. But a lot of them, they'll stop their productivity. They'll stop working. What will end up happening are those employees that are not working, they will still get paid. So you're paying employees for not working. That's essentially what's happening. This is because federal employees receive back pay once the government resumes. Now, speaking about resuming, once you stop programs and projects, it is not always so easy just to pick up and resume them. A lot of times it requires additional administrative work. So there's more effort, there's more of a cost when you're trying to resume something. It's not as simple as flipping a switch. Another way that it can hurt the economy is there are businesses out there that need certifications from government agencies. Let's look, for example, breweries. The Alcohol, Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau is an agency that regulates craft breweries. Over 7,000 craft breweries around the country could not get approved during the most recent shutdown. That reduced revenue and prevented over 100,000 jobs within that industry. Now, as for federal hiring, that can hurt anyone within the process. If you just accepted a government job offer, the onboarding process will be frozen. You will not go further. The security team will not be doing the background check. You will have to wait until that agency resumes normal operations in order for you to get onboarded. I personally dealt with these budgetary issues where I'm trying to get onboarded to an agency and there's nothing that they can do. And as a job seeker, the only thing you really can do is just email them every few weeks and ask them, Are there any updates? You're going to hear the same thing back. Sorry, we're dealing with budgetary issues. We're not able to move further. And it's a waiting game. For me, it took over 4 months. If we have another government shutdown, expect to wait multiple months. Remember, there are over 400 federal agencies in the federal government. Each one of them, they could be funded completely different. Federal agencies actually announce their contingency plans on whitehouse.gov. So if you have a specific question about a job offer at one agency, if there's a shutdown, I would go to this page and check. Last year, we came dangerously close to shutting down the government. But during that time frame, people were still getting hired aggressively into the IRS. And the money for those hiring actions, it came from the Inflation Reduction Act. So they were somewhat insulated from these budgetary concerns. Now, as a person looking to get a federal government job, I wouldn't be concerned about any of this. I wouldn't be paying attention about, is the government shutting down? Yes, no, maybe so. I would be focused on, hey, let me go ahead and apply as much as possible now. And then I get the referral, I get interviewed, so what if it's shut down? You keep applying, and eventually it's going to resume, and that job offer will get to you. But you need to be thinking right now, how can you improve your current situation? If you're making $80,000 a year, you want to get to that $120,000 a year mark, you know you're going to have to apply for certain opportunities that will get you to your goal. And all this worrying about government shutdowns, that's not going to take you anywhere. If you're a current federal employee, you need to understand that once the government shutdowns, your paychecks stop in the moment. There's so many of us that live paycheck to paycheck, and if it shuts down for over 30 days, you're going to be left with bills with no money to actually pay for it. Now, I talked about it earlier. You will get back paid, but the question is, when? How long will the shutdown last? So you want to make sure you have at least 3 or 6 months of living expenses saved. Now, that's easier for somebody who's in their 40s and 50s to say. It's harder if you're in your 20s, but that should be what you're striving towards. Now, if you don't do this, what will end up happening is you're going to pull out high interest loans from a bank, or maybe you'll even borrow from your TSP. You really do not want to borrow from your TSP at any point unless it's a life or death emergency. Other than that, leave your TSP alone. Your future self will thank you. There are several people that I talk to. When I bring up government shutdowns, that's the topic that makes them completely disinterested. They no longer want to pursue government jobs because in their mind, they see it as not stable or it's not a guarantee. Well, there are no guarantees. If you go to the private sector, do you have any guarantees there? Even the best job under the best circumstance is at mercy to the economy. The economy goes down, the organization doesn't see profits, to include if you start your own business. If you don't see profits after so many months, you're going to be left stranded. So where's the security in that? The federal government actually offers a pension. Many state governments offer a pension. So when you get older, when you get into your mid to late 60s, early 70s, you don't have to look around at family members hoping that they help you out. You can retire with some sort of dignity, being able to provide and care for yourself and have a comfortable arrangement where you're not a burden on anyone else out there. If you are interested in federal government jobs, you probably have a lot of questions, to include USAJobs.gov. What's going on with that website? The federal hiring process, different type of government jobs. I did a live stream recently. I answered over a dozen questions. A lot of these questions, they could be on your mind. If you're interested in that, I want you to see this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.